I was extremely pleased and very lucky to get a place at the Triumph Adventure Experience's first ever Enduro Day on the brand new TF250 and 450 Enduro bikes. These bikes were fresh off the delivery truck. Whilst my experience of Enduro riding is somewhat limited, never actually owned a proper Enduro bike, I was really excited to see how these machines performed at the superb Triumph Adventure Experience playground at the Brecon Beacons. We started the day by getting familiar with the bikes and the wider gravel and dirt trails which stretch across the mountain. With all the dry weather recently, there was plenty of dust, but there were still a few muddy puddles holding out against the odds. Once we were all feeling like we'd got the hang of things, we headed off towards some of the newly created Enduro-style single-track sections that have been carved through the forest by the TAE team. At each point, we were shown a circuit where we could traverse the single-track section multiple times. I thought it was pretty amazing how much smoother and more confidently I could ride each of these sections after a few goes. Good fun and completely different to the trail riding that I'm more used to. Right, there we go. I like it. Woohoo! Some of these trails are pretty tricky, but top instructors Matt and Keith were always on hand to offer tips and advice. Having started to get the hang of these tight single-track sections, the instructors then led us down some pretty steep sections. Maintaining balance and control whilst squeezing the bikes between trees definitely required a new level of concentration. Of course, after coming down the mountain, we had to go up again, and this required a whole different set of skills, modulating the power and maintaining momentum whilst picking your line. So we're just going around this kind of outer ring. After a little break, we regrouped to practice some drills, navigating steep descents and climbs. As with all these things, practice makes perfect, and a few unscheduled meetings with the scenery are all part of the fun. These drills were then scaled up as we tackled some significantly longer and steeper climbs and descents. Let's go first, shall we? Pretty steep. Then, after a slap-up lunch, we set off to complete a full lap of the enduro trails, somewhere around 15 miles in total, putting into practice everything we'd learned in the morning.
Don't even have to go on this. Significantly more sucking on the other.
One of the highlights for the lap for me were these super steep single track sections. They were freshly blazed and barely ridden. Just getting onto the main climb turned out to be something of a challenge.
There's a slightly bigger hole there now.
I often find in these situations, telling myself out loud what I need to do can be surprisingly helpful. And learning how to stop safely when someone is stuck in front of you is almost as useful as learning how to get yourself going again. Cool to see all of the advice the instructors had given us really did work in a real life situation. It was at about this point that I started to think how absolutely mad it was that I was sat on the side of this ridiculously steep hill on a motorbike. For a minute here, the path at the bottom felt a very long way away.
Spit on his face.
But then?
The dust on your face.
Oh right, yeah. This one was pretty much a squeeze on an OSET bike.
I have to admit, Having visited the Triumph Adventure Experience the previous week to ride the OSET electric trials bikes meant that some of the single track trails were somewhat familiar. I think it's fair to say at this point we were all starting to feel a lot more comfortable with the bikes, though fatigue was starting to set in, which led to some very interesting line choices. Fortunately, we soon rejoined the wider dirt tracks and made our way back to the obstacle training area where we started the day. Things that felt very much like obstacles in the morning, like logs, rocks and dirt mounds, were now easily surmounted and felt very small in comparison with some of the things we'd encountered on the trails. Though that's not to say there wasn't plenty of room for improvement. I have to say, the Triumph TF250 Enduro is one of the funnest bikes I've ridden in quite some time. It's sharp, it's powerful, but it's remarkably forgiving. It makes a great noise as well. To finish the day, we tried out some jumping techniques with varying degrees of success.